Welcome to the second module of the Global Housing Design MOOC. In this module, we will focus on incrementality, one of the three aspects that we propose as key design features for the development of adequate housing. At this point, some of you may be asking, what is incrementality? To try and make things clearer, let us unpack this unusual term. First, let us go to the dictionary. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, the adjective incremental means of, relating to, being, or occurring in especially small increments. For example, incremental additions or incremental change. In the context of housing design, incrementality is thus a concept used to describe projects designed to accommodate growth and change through time. In other words, rather than designing houses that are supposed to be fixed, incremental housing stands for those projects that consider the dynamic nature of dwelling practices. Over the past 2 decades, the concept of incremental housing has gained some momentum in housing design and scholarship. However, this is just a new concept to describe an old idea. Design approaches with the same goal have been around since the 19th century. Over these years, however, people call different names to similar approaches. In this module, we will use incrementality as an umbrella term to describe different housing approaches and house types designed to accommodate growth and change through time. There are indeed a few other terms used to name this housing approach or these types of houses: growing, expandable, or evolutionary houses, aided self-help housing, and sites and services. While all these terms can be placed under the umbrella of incremental housing, they are not interchangeable. They mean different things in different historical moments. They all have in common, however, the fact that they gained popularity in times of economic hardship. In other words, incremental housing approaches usually coincide with times of scarcity of resources, fiscal austerity, or economic recession. Sometimes all of these combined. The idea of growing house, for example, was popular among urban planners and architects in Germany in the early 1930s. In the aftermath of the stock market crisis of 1929, the growing housing was a possibility to allow people to be self-sufficient, to build an affordable house and allow it to grow through time when the families had the necessary resources. Aided self-help was another concept that appeared in the period between the First and the Second World War. This was a time of severe housing shortages and political unrest. To try and mitigate these two societal problems, many governments developed policies to facilitate people's own initiatives in the development of their houses. This approach would become extremely popular after the Second World War as a strategy to provide housing for the poor in the developing world. The basic idea was that each family should complete the construction of its own home at its own pace as determined by their skills and resources. In the 1970s, a particular incremental housing approach called sites and services started being disseminated all over the world. Taking some of its characteristics from the self-help tradition, the sites and services approach was, however, more driven by a top-down form of management. Governmental agencies, with the financial and technical support of international agencies such as the World Bank, designed and provided the infrastructure, meaning the services, and distributed service plots, meaning the sites, to the families, who should then start the incremental improvement of their houses. The sites and services projects were implemented in the developing world and were designed to create big new housing neighborhoods, In contrast, the so-called evolutionary houses, or habitat évolutif, as the French called it, gained momentum in the developed world after the Second World War as a new concept to define house types that could accommodate growth and change through time. The focus of those exploring this concept was the dwelling unit. The idea was to try and design flexible housing systems, a living environment that should be able to be constantly appropriated and redefined according to the dweller's wishes and whims. The concept of expandable houses was being developed in parallel with the research on evolutionary houses. However, while evolutionary housing explored growth and change for a more theoretical or even academic framework, expandable houses was favored more by agents related with the actual production of housing, such as the real estate developers and engineers, for example. The designs for expandable houses were many times inspired by the vernacular tradition of the different contexts, trying to incorporate in a modern design what the people have been doing spontaneously for many decades or even centuries. Some of the terms discussed above are still used today, while others not. Over the last 2 decades, incremental housing has been increasingly used as the preferred concept to define an approach to the design and development of houses that can accommodate growth and change over time. As the descriptions of the different terms mentioned above suggest, incrementality is a key feature for policymakers, urban designers, and architects interested in exploring the best possible trade-off between affordability, spatial quality, and social inclusion.